Hello, I'm Chrissy Seaton and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing, and if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. We have been talking in the past about some unusual phenomena, etc., and so you can go and watch those previous videos. So today's video is centered around UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, but is now usually referred to as UAPs, which is unidentified aerial phenomena. So there we go. Now, these aerial phenomena, past and present, do raise a lot of questions, and let me say that this has been happening throughout history, not just in our modern era of history. So, and there is a growing literature of information, and some of it's been reported by what they term as very credible witnesses. Some is reported by just one witness, some's by many witnesses, and so it goes on. Now, just recently, is this year, in June this year, the Pentagon has released a report on unidentified aerial phenomena, and that was released in June this year, 2021. Now, some of the experts in this field and other scientists, etc., have said that the report has actually raised more questions than it has given answers. So that's their take on it. Now, I will be giving you some links to look at further information or look at the actual information that I'm talking about today. And those links will be in the description box below, where you can go straight to those links and watch it or read it for yourself. So let's take a little look at the history of UFOs. So as early as ancient times, in 2014, before Christian era that was, a close encounter was described as being men dressed in shiny, I'm reading this, shiny white, seen in the sky in Patria, showing similarities to some modern day descriptions now of close encounters. So there's one there. Then we jump to 74 before Common Era, and it talks about two armies, the army of Rome and Pontus, and they were engaged with each other in, obviously, altercations, when a large object apparently appeared in the sky, and it was the shape of a wine jar, a large wine jar. Funny how the shapes that people see are defined by the point of history and development that they're at. So, wine jar. Now, it was in the sky and it fell between the two armies. Now, you would say that certainly if this is what happened, that there would have been plenty of witnesses, because you've got two opposing armies. And it was described as like molten silver in colour, and it was seen from a distance, but it was still interpreted as being very large. Now, I imagine that might have brought the armies to a halt with warring with each other. It certainly would have commanded attention. And one of the footnotes was, they said that the credibility would have rested on, quite a few thousand or witnesses, given that the phenomena was seen by two opposing armies. So there's that. Then in 65 Common Era, there was what was described as a miraculous phenomena at Judea, and this was described and recorded by the historian Josephus, who some of you will know very well. And it said that with chariots and armed battalions seen going through the clouds before sunset. The event seemed illogical to Josephus. However, there were numerous eyewitnesses. So there you go. So they were happening back then, maybe even further back. So let's look now, move into modern day. We're looking at around 1890 now. Now, this is just post industrial revolution. So things are happening, things are being discovered, there's been, industry's been modernised and mechanised, etc. So it's a great time of change and improvements and different approaches to life, etc., and even thinking for that matter. So we know that in 1890, in this post-industrial revolution period, there was a sighting. Now, this is interesting. It said that, I'm just reading some of the descriptions. Airships in the sky, first of the modern UFO sightings. In 1896, the newspaper reports again airships with wings, propellers, and searchlights on these airships. Now, just bear in mind here, it was in 1852, this is when airships were first developed, and that is long before the Wright brothers conquered flight, and we saw the birth of modern aircrafts, etc. So this was way, they described them as airships because I guess they had a reference to that from what they already knew and understood, because airships had been invented by then. Then we skip to around 1947, and a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Arnold, he was an amateur pilot, and he reported seeing 9 UFOs in the sky, and that was dated June 24th, 1947. He says he saw a flash of light in the sky and 9 craft flew in formation and unison over about 5 miles. So he described them as boomerang shape and like a saucer. He said if you skipped a saucer across the water, you would get an idea of what he was looking at. And so this is where obviously the term flying saucer came from eventually. Now, this incident, incidentally, was followed by many more following that. And it is a few days after Arnold's sighting was when the Roswell incident is said to have occurred. Now, that was in July the 7th, 1947. And of course, most everybody's heard about Roswell and all the conspiracy theories and all the scientific evidence, etc. It was eventually stated to be a weather balloon, but there were 700 unexplained incidents around that time of Roswell, and lots of denials, and some people say lots of cover-ups. Now, following on from that, the US government created a project called Blue Book, and this was created to investigate what they were calling in those days UFOs. Right. Now, moving forward, in 2007, a Project Blue Book was sort of replaced by what they called ATIP, and that was Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And the person that headed that up was a man called Luis Elizondo. He's, I'll make reference to in the description box to some links where you can hear him speak. Very interesting man. He has now finished that job, but that was what he was in charge of that at that time. Now, this operated out of the Pentagon, and the head of the project, as I explained, was Luis Elizondo. And interestingly, sightings often occurred near nuclear facilities. And in one of the links that I've provided, you will hear a report about how they actually, whatever these unidentified phenomena were, they'd shut down nuclear systems, and another incident they'd activated nuclear systems. But I'm not going to go into all that. You can look that up for yourself if you're interested. You can follow those links. So then in in 2017, the United States government actually publicly acknowledged that this program existed, this ATIP. Then we move on to 2020, and there was videos were being released, etc., and there was some admission that this phenomena wasn't always a weather balloon or gas phenomena in the sky and things like that. Now, what happened was 2004 and 2015, there were two UFOs. They are now called unidentified aerial phenomena, of course, and they have, you can actually follow and watch and read up on these. And these certainly involved radar anomalies. There was oceanic disturbance in the vicinity, and of course the famous tic-tac associated with the US aircraft carrier Nimitz. And of course that is where there was I found that actually quite riveting to look at that, and I created a link for you to follow that. Now, what was interesting about this episode with the Tic Tac, it was shaped like a Tic Tac, and that's how it got its name. Commander Fravor gave an excellent recall and description, and I've linked, put a link in the description box. It's a very lengthy video interview, but I found it quite riveting. This man was interesting. He believes in God. He knows what he saw, and he explains it as he saw it. So if you don't watch anything else, that's probably one I'd recommend. There is a shortened version, I think, too. I might be able to link that as well. But never mind. The interesting thing was the radar, people operating the radar, they have a term called cap point. So the aircraft that were in, I think they were F-18s or something, that were in the sky doing manoeuvres and practices were all to rendezvous and meet at what they call a cap point, and only disclosed to the pilots. So they all meet back at this certain spot. And as they were being instructed, I think, to go to their cap point, within no time at all, this Tic-Tac was actually at their cap point waiting for them. So that really has to make you think a little bit, doesn't it? So let's move along now. And we've had 75 years, approximately 75 years, of what we would term modern day sightings of aerial phenomena or encounters. And some of them have been, one of the first real case investigations involved a couple called Betty and Barney Hill, and that was in the United States. And the reporter was John Luttrell Sr. I believe I might have put a link for that. But if you look up Betty and Barney Hill UFO or something like that on the internet, you'll find it. But that was the first recorded, probably real, how shall I say, investigation into whether it was a fantasy or a hoax or whatever. Now, just harking back now to Commander David Fravor in relation to the Tic Tac, he was one of these top guns, real top guns. So that these were Navy pilots. He'd had 18 years experience, as had his colleagues, and he is one of few people who has actually identified a unidentified flying object, if you like, and actually chased it. And this was in 2004. So, and that's the incident that's referred to as the Tic Tac. So the story, incidentally, is corroborated by many witnesses, and it's been recorded on camera. And so we've got lots of linkage there. And now, we can listen and see that actual experience. Moving on now, I guess at this point, we have to be asking ourselves, well, is there any truth to this? Is there something going on? Well, it appears by scientists and certainly quite a few credible witnesses and experiences that there is something certainly unusual going on in our skies that doesn't belong to us or hasn't been claimed by anybody on Earth. There have been lots of conspiracies and theories that it's, Russia or China or whatever, but I believe that those thoughts and ideas have been dismissed because this is something affecting the whole world. So I think it's probably appropriate for me to say, well, what does this, how does this, do the existence, if there are these unidentified aerial phenomena and they're captured and explored or whatever, is this going to alter our concept of the existence of God, of the greatness of God? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do you know what? All things are known to God. Only God knows all things. And we as the humans on this planet Earth, we can't purport to always know what's in God's plans, long-term plans, etc. Remember I said once before, not a leaf drops to the ground without it being a divine vibration in the will of God. So, we as humans may still be on our learning journey. We don't know yet. Only God knows that. So if it is proven that there is life on other planets, that there are living beings on other planets, that they are visiting us in crafts of all manner, shape and technology, God is still God. It hasn't diminished the God that we know and love. He's all powerful. So nothing we discover alters that existence of God or his greatness and divinity. It just means he is God of some other dimension as well, or some other planet that has life on it or something like that. We don't, I guess we've got to reassure ourselves while we exist and God is true, there is always a possibility that God has another world somewhere that we don't know anything about or we haven't reached yet. So we have to be sensible. But anyway, as I said, you can follow links to some more information on this. Now, there's something I want to draw your attention to because I think you will find this interesting, and there'll be a link in the description box. In Australia, we have a freelance investigative reporter called Ross Coulthard, and he is very good. I often listen to some things he's reporting on, and he has had an interview and explained his findings. Now, it's specifically to do with unidentified aerial phenomena, plus some other anomalies as well. And it's all related to technology and things that are outside our understanding at this time. There's been sightings of UFOs, etc. And so I've got a link for that, which you will find quite interesting. And I think I linked to two things of Ross Coulthard's because I can't remember what they're called. But anyway, they'll be in the description box below for you. So what we need to come back to now is that, so the Pentagon has released a statement or a report. I believe it was only 8 or 9 pages, so it doesn't sound like it was an exhausting report. There is information out there. There are people reporting on things. If these crafts and these flying objects, etc., unidentified or whatever, or known, they certainly defy gravity if you look at what the witnesses are saying. So their gravity and their propulsion mechanisms are often silent. Something like we don't have, I think Commander Fravor explained in his interview that, like with a plane, when you're going this way and you want to get up to there, you've sort of got to go a loop, a loop, a loop, a loop, you gradually climb. But these things, this tic-tac, it could just go from here straight up or straight across like that. And so that's interesting. So if there are these things out there, then maybe our world as we know it has even more challenge and more blessings in being humanitarian. We can't necessarily say that everything we see and can't explain is bad. Some of it needs to be investigated. But the main thing is that it doesn't alter the divinity of Hashem. He is still our God. He may have other worlds that we don't know of and don't need to know of yet, but perhaps we do. Who knows? Only God knows. And I think at some point we have to trust our faith. And I think we as Noahides or God-fearing people, we have to also acknowledge these things that are going on. We live in the real world. So we have to be responsible for keeping up with the news and things. Not all of it will apply to us. Not all of it makes sense to us. A lot of it leaves us with questions. However, it bears that we contemplate that this does not affect our oneness with God. It does not affect the oneness of our loving Father. It does not alter the Torah and the holy writings. It just means that there may be other life forms out there that God loves as much as us. And we may have to learn to love them as well. So, as I've said, I haven't seen anything, a phenomena of this description in my lifetime. But certainly many people seem to have had genuine sightings of something that has impressed them or frightened them or enlightened them in some way. So there's a lot of information out there to go through, and I know when I was researching some information for this video, I've only mentioned a fraction of what's out there because I would have been making videos for a year to cover it all, and I couldn't. My main purpose was just to say that at some point we have to understand and read about these things, make up our own mind as to what our feelings are about it, be aware of it, but also at the same time we have to say, well, Hashem, it's all in your hands. I'll make myself familiar with information. I don't know if I believe in it or not. I don't know if I need to believe in it or not, but I trust in you no matter what is going on. And I think that's the platform that is the wise way to go. None of this negates God. If anything, it just adds to the layer of wonderment that we have, the possibilities that we haven't even thought of that God may already have created. So, please don't forget to look in the description box below and follow those links for further information. Certainly, that Ross Coulthard's done a couple of interviews which I find really interesting from many points of view. So I'd suggest you watch that. And again, thank you very much the people who have subscribed to my channel. And in the meantime, I want you to please take care and God bless.